All right.
Okay,
Thank
you. Just before we turn over to Chris, Rick and I met with Dell and Joe and the architects here a week or so ago. Obviously, the bids are out there for everybody to see. I think we emailed out everybody. You know, they came in higher than what we were anticipating. So just try to get a start on tonight, so we don't have to be here till midnight. Chris will present some options here. Basically, what our goal was is we looked at how we could reduce the project, yet still get the essentials done that we need. We started with kind of a bare bones project to start with, but there's infrastructure here that just has to be addressed. We've been saying that for 15 years. But obviously, anytime you do a big project, there's some other things that were added. So again, we just kind of looked at it, tried to figure out. So that's part of where to go. The other part of that, though, is especially not having this summer now because of the delays that we've already had, and then extra delays is we can't upend the students. We're not a traditional school. Even if we wanted to put temporary classrooms in the yard and put them in a classroom, what's that do for our laboratories? I mean, you just can't do that. So that's part of the discussion, keeping that as a focal point, that we've got to be able to accomplish this task and not upend the educational experience for our students. So those were, I think, are kind of two goals. So Chris, turn it over to you and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everybody. Jim will hand out a one-page sheet of all the options. As you are aware, we were over budget by approximately 14%. Projects that we've been seeing over the last 3 or 4 months during this pandemic era are anywhere from 13% to 100% over budget. The smaller the project, the worse it is. We've seen small generator projects, should be 150,000 to 300,000. Materials, so everybody's aware, I think everybody knows wood in the Home Depot has gone through the roof. That's starting to level off a little bit, but our big problem right now is steel. Steel is an issue, and that covers mechanical, that covers general construction, that covers plumbing, that covers electrical. Over the last 2 weeks, metal has gone up twice. We don't see any end in sight at this point. We're not sure what's going to happen. One of the big things we know is happening in the States right now is Walmart and Amazon have bought up most of the steel for the big warehouse houses they're building. We can't even get steel deck or steel joists until next year. This is probably one of the most horrible construction times we've seen since probably 2008 with Katrina hit. It's just ridiculous. The prices are through the roof. I will tell you the bids we did receive were tight. They were anywhere between 1% and 3% close to each other, which tells us they're all bidding the same thing, which is a good thing. So we think we got good bids that are tight bids. Before I go in the options, were there any questions about the bids or anything before I go in the options? Option 1 is to award the project based on the low bids, which is $29,599,000. Option 2 would be to take all of the deduct alternates. That would be a credit of $268,000. What those alternates would be changing 90 mil roof to a 60 mil roof, substitute the double glazed low E windows, delete food service equipment, and then we had another one for more food service equipment to delete. That would reduce the total construction bid to $29,331,000. Option 3 is to use $1.5 million from the contingency, which would still leave us $2 million in the case. That would reduce the total cost of bid to $28,099,000. Option 4 would be to rebid as soon as possible and eliminate the new construction of the transition center, which was the addition of 2,900 square feet on the north side of the building back here. That'd be a potential savings of almost $650,000. And then tourism, hospitality, mechatronics, drone technology labs on the south side of the building, which is approximately 5,600 square feet, could be eliminated for almost $1.75 million. We would also use the $2 million or $1.5 million from the contingency for this option And the potential savings would be $2,400,000, which would bring us to $32,505,940. Now, on the bottom of the sheet, you'll see all of the bid options, what the building cost would be, the architectural and engineering fees, furniture and equipment, and then the contingency, which in the last two options, that contingency we were dipping into, taking 1.5 million. And the last row shows you the total estimated cost of the total project. Sam, anything to add?
I guess one of our conversations was about equipment. By doing the contingency, obviously, if there's money left in contingency, we can buy some more new lab equipment, which is a positive. However, can you just tell us which labs, like culinary, the equipment is already, that's in the building cost bid.
Correct.
Bid price. And what else?
Any equipment that's fixed is in the room, casework, things like that. Your large machinery in the manufacturing labs, that's items you would have to purchase. So anything that can be moved is not in there, but like culinary, all of that's included.
And then we didn't touch in here the furniture and equipment. That's your, more of that's like your light equipment, furniture, tables and chairs, things like that.
Loose tables and chairs, that's right.
The number's still there. Obviously, if it gets to the point where you need some more contingency, potentially you don't buy, you're going to reuse some of your equipment, your furniture that you have now.
And that's a healthy number. It's almost 7% of the budget for the furniture. But we knew you needed to replace it. It needs to be replaced. But can we use some existing furniture? Sure, we could. The other thing I do want to mention too is with option 4 to rebid, we'd be looking at probably 4 to 6 weeks to do that.
So what would be the benefit in rebidding as soon as possible, knowing that costs are still in fluctuation and they're supposedly coming down? Wouldn't it make more sense to maybe wait 6 months?
It's a gamble.
I mean, it's a gamble, but
It's a gamble. Honestly, I'm really nervous with the prices going up that if we rebid, it can come in almost the same numbers we're at right now.
That's the negative. If we don't accept these bids,
That could happen.
right?
And I'm really nervous about that. I know we redid a couple of projects. One of them came in over budget the second time and we eliminated work. It was just because of construction prices.
Was their timeline completely changed? Go with that, like Sam was saying, we don't want it to start till next summer. Is that correct?
No, this summer that we're in right now, obviously. But when we first talked about it, was out for bid and then bids open, all that, we were hoping to get started here. Right now, the earliest timeline would be January, that you would start with any new construction. You wouldn't start redoing any areas probably until next summer.
You would just, whenever we allocate, we start telling the people, you got the bid, get your material in here, and our starting date would be such and such, so have material on site such and such days, basically. I'm just saying, even if we give them a bid, half the stuff we can't get for a year. I'm almost guaranteeing that if any AC stuff, you won't be able to get it for a year. Furniture, you might go up to 6 months. Okay, you can't get home furniture. If you want your home stuff, you want to do some stuff on the floor, yeah. But to 10-foot table and you want a 6-foot table, you have to 4-foot.
We're hearing the same exact thing. I know Ryan Doyle from Perry Construction is here tonight. He confirmed that too, that delays in equipment, it's just, we're being told it'll be 2 months, it'll be 3 months, then it's 4 months.
Right, so that's, even if, let's say, my personal opinion, I would go with one, we have to find funding, even if it's COVID, there's all sorts of stuff we have to talk to our business managers and say, hey, if you don't accept these bids, you might come back, like you said, exact same price.
And we get less.
Right.
We don't get the new construction. And that was the beauty of this project, was building the new construction first to move the students into. So that's why Sam was saying we wouldn't even start. We couldn't touch the building until we get that new construction done. I will tell you, I think we had really good numbers. They were tight.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head with, you wait 6 months, it's a gamble. You just don't know. I will tell you, like copper just continues to go up. Wood, we have started to hear, we haven't seen it yet, but supposedly it's coming down. But we haven't seen it hit Home Depot or Lowe's yet.
Chris, knowing the full scope now, that we do this is on a drawing, is there any opportunity to break it up into sections?
You could, but what you do then is you're gonna pay more for mobilization.
Well, yeah.
And the tough part about this job is we're breaking everything apart. You know, so if we try to go do the ceilings and an infrastructure project, well, then we have other stuff underneath. We still have the types, we still have flooring, we still have culinary equipment. That's what makes that difficult trying now.
I'll take that as a no.
No.
Economically, you're saying, he's trying, I'm listening, economically not advisable.
I get it. I know it is, but I'm saying it's an option.
Yeah,
It is.
So we say no to it. Okay, so we at least talked about it.
yeah, thank you.
The other issue is the timing for the contract. I mean, they're under, I wouldn't imagine they could keep to the schedule that we gave them in the bid, right? Knowing what we're,
Not now.
yeah.
No.
So now we're gonna have to redo that and project out so many months and all that with possible labor rates going up, all that kind of
You
stuff.
don't, well, you won't have to deal with the labor rates for your project that's bid. But you
Yeah.
would if we rebid.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's another option. Not option, it's a reality
Caveat.
that it's gonna be probably higher labor rates to go along with it if that's your bid.
You're exactly right, John, because after the first year it changes,
Not a good thing, but
but that's reality.
so no matter what, I think those prices are gonna go up.
I think so too. One thing I can tell you is I don't think the profit margins from all manufacturers have changed. They just jacked their prices up. And the profit margins stayed the same and whatever it was, and we're killing each other. People are buying everything. So I think that's part of the problem too. We're hoarding things, the price of everything's going up. But steel is one of the worst things we see right now. It's just skyrocketing. No end in sight.
The thing we don't need a lot of chips.
Thing. Well, I'm starting to make those fine.
Other questions, comments?
So what do we do at this point then, Sam? If we pick, just say, as Dennis suggested, to stick with option one, we gotta go back to our individual districts and ask for more money, correct?
Right, we would have to do that, and we gotta get, everybody gave an approval. I don't think that was based on any number. So we would have to do that whole process. And we need to get Mill Creek on board, which we'll talk about a little later about some different options with that. But what's everybody's gut with, in essence, where we had hoped to cap it at 32.5 total, we're really looking at, about 37. So, what some of our districts have set aside, there's going to be more. One idea we've already thrown out there, and we've already started the ball rolling. But honestly, after talking to both Senator Laughlin's office and with Park Wetland, my representative, the real part of the county, I flat out asked the senator for 10 million, and they kind of laughed. If it was $1 million or something, they could do something. Basically, there's a lot of COVID funds out there. We can look at this and say, hey, we got 5 or 6 million that's directly related to supply chain issues based upon COVID and all of that. Can we get some of that? All of our school districts have gotten some money. The tech school hasn't. Is there a way that we could get our legislators to do a carve out here for us? Every city's getting some things. So that's it. We still want to pursue that. No matter what we decide, we want to pursue that. Even if it was 3 or 4 million, that would help that. But what's everybody's gut on what your boards are going to say when they see a $37 million project that we had hoped to keep under 32.5, and we had hopes a year ago of being, maybe 27 million. So we're 10 million over.
We got to ask what the cost of the system.
How much more? We run that spreadsheet. That's not hard to do. Take a percentage and look at the last one.
What's that?
What each district, every district's gonna have to pay more to do the real numbers.
Well, the real number is not, the real number is 32.5 at the bottom. It's not 29,599.
Well, we're 32.5, that's the guesstimate, the actually option one is where it's.
37 million now.
I mean, if you took the 36.8 and did nothing there, well, but back out the 1.5 million of the contingency, you know, and reduce that, you know, now we're still, let's say 35 million.
I guess the point is, there's the construction project cost, there's the big cost, and then you got A&E fees, and you got this, and you got that. So what would you tell your board, just the bid cost?
What we've done is the project costs, because that would be it. Now, we've already prepaid 650,000. So, you know, a large chunk of the A&E, we've already prepaid that, which we would get a credit towards it. That comes out of here, but still you're gonna have.
Wouldn't our each district's fee basically go up to 14%?
Yes,
I mean, in reality,
basically, whatever it was plus 14%.
Plus 14%.
so if somebody was paying $1 million, it's now gonna be 1.15 million.
Just to let you know, Mr. Dinsmore is.
All right, thank you.
I know for a lot of it's gonna be a tough pill to swallow. I know, I'm confident saying that Mr. Bennett, our superintendent, and our business manager, they will take a very serious, hard look at it and try to see, you know, if we can move money around and do this and do that, but, you know, for us, that's basically an extra $150,000. And we're in the process of putting new roofs on the elementary school. Pool ceiling was falling, you know, there's just a lot of things going on there that we took out of our capital funding to pay for. So whether there's any capital money left, you know, that'll be up to those two to see if they can find. I mean, I know for a fact that our board and our administration wants this project to go forward. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Now, you know, that we're talking because of all the delays that we've been putting up with, you know, there's an extra $5.5 million on top of it that we got to come up with to do the project right.
If we, basically, from our discussion, there's 3 areas of new construction proposed here. So back when we had first asked about splitting the project up, one of the questions to Chris was, what can we do? So when we went into our meeting looking at, that's the easiest thing to cut. If we tear this floor up, you're gonna replace both the water line and the sewer line. You're not gonna do only one, okay? There's no way to split that from, you know, what John asked before, but new construction, we could potentially get rid of that. So the 3 areas that he talked about, there's this one, that basically that was moving the transition center, right? Over into this building. It's fine there, it can stay there. We could not do that. So that makes sense. The problem is, as soon as we drop that one piece, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to rebid the whole thing. Unless there was an alternative. It wasn't. So see, that's the problem we're into. And so if we've got to rebid,
Now it could go up anyway.
correct. So the question is, do we want to, on the other piece, culinary, there's no way to do this project without building new for culinary. In essence, that's all you're going to get in new construction is a new culinary lab in that area. We're dropping off the rest of that in option 4. There's one real small one out front for the offices, and that's kind of essential for security and that type of thing. What you're going to gain in that project is some larger space for rooms, but that's an existing structure. In essence, I think a lot of it's here where culinary departs there. So that's something that potentially could go away. As Joe said, we've done it for years without, but it doesn't really save us any money because it's existing. All we're doing is upgrading, and we don't want to be so bare bones that we have no room at all to expand anything. You know, so that's the problem. But we're back to the catch-22. We either go with everything as it is and go with the bids and try to figure out how to come up with money, or the only thing we can really change is the new construction, and the only way to do that is to rebid, and we're at the mercy of whatever happens. They were tight So in one essence, you know, one hand, you can look at that and say, okay, contractor's gonna sharpen their pencil if they're number two, okay? But prices have gone up, so who knows? I mean, we could have reduced the project hoping to save money, and it could be the same or higher than what we have.
And we still lost in the building.
Correct, and you lose that square footage, so.
Under option 4, Sam, on number 2, the tourism, hospitality, megatronics, drones, are those all new labs that were going to be built?
No, it was new space. Joe, can you?
Yeah, sure. The mechatronics and drone lab technology is something Dr. Walker wanted to institute.
Right.
That, at the end of the month, I'll talk to you about not going in that direction. So again, that's one of my logics of why we could lose that space there. Tour and hospitality, we're just trying to, that's not a new program. We have been running that program. Once again, we wanted to give them a little bit more of a larger space to be able to do things here, because they actually go to Scott Enterprises, 3 days a week, and to go over there to do their lab work and stuff like that. So
Because I see that's 1.7 million, and that's a bigger savings than the transition centers. But I also, if we don't do that number 2, I don't want to jeopardize those labs. I mean, do they have a place to go if we don't build new?
yeah, they'll be fine. And like I said, we'll talk more about tourism, hospitality, will be fine. We'll make sure they have a bigger theory room here and be able to, use other areas here. But again, we'll still count on Scott Enterprises being our, our lab space for that.
But even if you drop that, Tim said we'd still have to go out to bid, no matter
Correct.
which one of those.
Any one piece,
Because they're new construction.
as you're dropping
The
off.
risk of Scott Enterprises, something happened to the relationship there, and we have nothing, so I don't think we should cut it. It's great we have that relationship, but his business model changes and he decides this doesn't fit the model and I want something different. Stop.
That's why it was in there to start with. It works. The Medtronics thing, we could still do that in existing space in the future. It's not something, we're probably gonna shuffle the new program that we're gonna bring out that Joe's talking about. That's the problem is.
Well, no matter what, I hate to be the bad apple in the bunch. But no matter how much we talk about trying to come up with another 5 million, we still need a yes out of Mill Creek, no matter what we do. So if Mill Creek was struggling at 27 or $30 million, and was it, are they gonna struggle now at 37 million?
What's your feeling, John?
Everybody's gonna struggle.
I'm sure that we have to talk to, talk to Congress, but we have to talk to city and county is getting COVID money for this kind of problems. And right now the city's actually trying to find a person just so they know how to delegate their money. I think we can find it throughout the United States, the same thing. Okay, so.
Yeah, just there's no guarantee of any of that because we haven't been awarded anything. So one question that's come up is about part of, and I don't know what they're called, one of these jackpots of money that we've just gotten from the federal government can be used towards ventilation. So potentially we could get numbers from you that would translate back to all the districts. That the problem is all your districts have already allocated their money that they've been told they're going to get. But potentially that's in the struggle, we could get a portion of that could be towards ventilation that could be used towards whatever that pot of money is that's out there for ventilation. Get the answers.
Can this JOC get that, or should the individual boards, they have to come up with the?
Each individual school district has that and they have to allocate that, but they could direct that towards ventilation at this building, because this is your building and our building, it's all of our buildings. So I think that would be probably fine, right, Tim? The problem is every school district's got to agree to send a little bit extra.
A school district could allocate ESSER's funding, I think, to a building that you won't, which you do. So, and ESSER's funding is a potential pot of money they can use for HVAC as an application project. But if it is one of the listed projects.
Rick, you were in the meeting, you got anything to add?
No, Sam, I thought you did a security talk.
You have a big, you guys have a big bang Friday, right?
We have a meeting Friday, yes, sir.
Superintendent, yes.
Who else is speaking? This is superintendent, I thought they had one.
We just have a superintendent Friday here.
Superintendent,
Yeah,
right.
this Friday.
It's Thursday, I guess, the bigger superintendents.
Yeah, we're down, well, actually, it's just a Zoom meeting, this Thursday.
With the Erie County Health.
Yeah.
When do the bids expire?
Perfect timing. That's what I was just gonna say. We're thinking of like September 28th. So time is of the essence. We had 90 days from the day the bids were due.
So in theory, you could bid it, could you bid it out again and accept either bid, or once you rebid it, those other bids go away?
Those other bids are void, because what you'd have to do is the board would have to reject those other bids before we went out to bid for the new bid. Correct, Tim?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to say, we don't want these, we're gonna get new ones.
Right. Okay.
Which is unfortunate.
What was that date? September what?
September 28th.
So if we're leaning that way, and we have, you know, we're not gonna award bids tonight because we don't have the funding. We could reject bids tonight if we wanted to get the ball rolling to rebid. That's one thing we could do tonight. We can sit on it, talk to our boards if our feeling was, you know, that hey, we want to try to do that, and then we can talk to Mill Creek and see, you know, where we're going to go. We can talk to legislators and try to come up with, you know, some of the extra funding to help with that. What I would probably suggest is, knowing how politicians are, that we count on paying the whole thing. If we get some help, great. But if we count on that, you know, it could be next February before we get any kind of answer, and then when the money would come. But so that's kind of our options. I want to go to another step here with the meeting we have with Mill Creek, but I don't want to go there until we kind of figure out anything more on the bidding or building. John?
One of the other things, I like the point you made, Sam, regarding the ventilation within the individual boards. I mean, everybody, I would think, has their ESSER money at least projected as to what they're going to be doing. It'd be great to know how much would be available for that, for each district. I mean, to kind of see what that number might be. Because it sounds like it might be a relatively significant number. It could be, I should say.
George, you know how those numbers are already, do you? Idea where we are? See, I don't, in the bidding, in the bid paper, at least it's online there, ventilation, heating, air conditioning, ventilation is separate, but is all of that acceptable to be used for that money? That's what I don't know.
It's not like they're gonna not spend the money on something. So
Correct.
I think we're kind of chasing something. It's not like it's.
They're not getting more or less because they're gonna use it or not. They're gonna use it all.
So I think I agree with you. We need to move forward on taking this back to our boards with revised numbers. And I don't see any point in rejecting bids because it's probably gonna be worse. It's not gonna get better. You know, there's too many projects going on right now that use all the resources. Everybody, all these governments have tons of money to spend on stuff. Trying to make options won't work. It's one of building with no equipment. No Fairvies in support of the whole project.
My only
Speaking
thought,
for me.
my thought is, and you have apples and oranges here a little bit, under contingency. You can make a decision as to whether, under all these options, you're gonna go to.
Right.
If there is a credit for the A&E fees, then we should show that credit now, as opposed to having the entire amount. That reduces it. And you put that in.
Just doesn't change the AD and take it $2 million off 650,000.
Show a credit towards it.
650,000.
So it's the 650 on the A&E and then the reduce all the contingency to 2 million across the board. At least you're not even that.
1.86, about 2.4.
So Chris, you can do that and send that out to us. We'll get it out to everybody. And then if, can George come up with, whatever we for Esser's fund or whatever? I guess the question is, can we use all of your portion of the project for that money? Just, you know, that, if that helps, Bill, helps. I agree with Dave. It's, every district's gonna spend all that money somewhere.
Yeah, it's coming from the same bank account.
But if that helps somebody, let's put that information out there. Or can do
I
that.
guarantee you ours is being spent on new HVAC in the elementary.
Yeah. Chris, you said you had, is it a low bidder that's here tonight?
Yes, we have two of them. We have Ryan Doyle from Perry Construction, and we have Mark Klimo from Skull Valley for the plumbing, so general
Either
construction
like-
and plumbing.
Either of you two like to tell us anything, or you just here listening?
Well, I got one thing. The cost you're considering about looking at a rebid. Got an email in our office today, and we use a computer system that gives us updated pricings. Okay, on a weekly basis. We have a multiplier that works out of computers, we look at material and it spits out the pricing. Today, they said they're no longer going to put out pricing, and they're going to put it out as zeros, and you will have to go out and get everything quoted because they cannot keep up with the rising costs. And they don't want to take any responsibility. So whenever this gets pushed out, you're going to be eating into where you're at right now with the cost. So that, I mean, that's what we're looking at. So if I did this job today, if I was along the plumbing, if I did this today, my cost would be higher as of right now. Sure. To give you a perfect example, we finished the ballpark. And I bought half-inch copper. Half-inch copper, 1 foot was 90 cents a foot. Now, 15 months later, it's $2.50 for that same foot. It's gone up 175% in 15 months, and it's still going up.
Soon to be gold.
Yes, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, the structural steel, the columns, the joists, the decking, the beams, the day of bid, it was around 1.3 million. And when we receive a quote from the structural steel subcontractor, it's only good on the day they quote. So we're responsible to maintain our proposal for 90 days. That's locked in. It's already gone up 10%, but we're still held to the number we bid on day of bid. So just to add to what Mark said, you know, it doesn't look too promising as far as material costs going down at all.
Thank you. Just confirming what we already thought. Any other comments on the bid? So I think the idea is let's go back to the board and see if we can get some kind of consensus. Because the nice thing, it's still this month. If we can get some consensus, we could act on them and award them later this month. If we can get there.
Union City meets Thursday night, so it's being
Everybody, I think, probably meets in the next 2 weeks, so that'll be good.
So Sam, you're gonna send out the revised cost in one option, right? So that we're all working for the same.
Well, if that's what we can do, we can just update this so they're all the same across the options, or we can get rid of all the options.
I think we need a recommendation. We need to make a recommendation
Okay.
to our boards on one single option. Otherwise, we'll vote 4 different ways, accomplish nothing. So what I'm hearing, at least so far, the consensus seems to be we need a fully funded project on option 1, less
Show the credit and get rid of the extra contingency, or reduce the contingency, that of the 2 million.
So they're all the same, correct?
So we'll have one option, that's it, that's all show on the sheet. We'll get it
it's
revised
the
tomorrow.
price, it's not an option. This is the price.
It's the price.
Well, estimate price, and then the bid price.
We'll get rid of, basically, there are no options. This is what the project we move forward with at this point, or we don't.
And then we need to each school what their revised cost is. So we'll
Correct.
vote on it.
We're just adding 14% onto what we already paid, or going to be paying.
And I think that'll be a high number, especially if you're getting rid of 2.6 million. So.
I'd rather see it on paper,
Yeah.
put it down.
I mean, that way we have something we sign, write back, say, yes, or you read it. Or not, I mean, it's not like you're gonna discuss it or change anything, it's either you're gonna accept it, or you're gonna reject it, or you're gonna postpone a vote.
Well, when we get into our voting meeting, Tim, we probably should make a motion to go back to each of our districts with those revised numbers and ask for approval for that, because that's what we need. We can't award bids end of August if we don't have everybody on board.
You don't have to approve what option is to be selected.
Well, we're gonna get rid of all the
You're just
options.
gonna do option one. Option two, you still have the flexibility to do.
Well, that is true.
It's just alternates, so you don't have to rebid. In regard to option two, that reduces the project also.
Is there any reason we would not want to take the deducts that we can take?
Well, the biggest one that I see is the roof. Well, I mean, that's our lifeline, really. I mean, why do we wanna cheapen the roof by 30% in fitness? 40% in fitness for $170,000.
I think option two is, it's $268,000 on a $30-some million project. That's with a lot of districts. It just, I say just cross that out, you know what I mean?
Stick with option one at this point. We can do the deducts later. Do we have to do that right away? Like
Yeah.
kitchen equipment, if we get into some other areas where we're using a lot of the contingency, can we do that later? Or we have to do all that?
We
when
should do
award
it now, because once we award the contract, Ryan can confirm this, he would order all that equipment.
Okay,
Unless we went to him with a caveat and said, order everything but this.
Yeah, which would be something in the contract that says maintain for X amount of days until.
Because we do have that as a legitimate alternate. Everybody saw it, everybody had a chance to bid on it, we'd just be saving that if we had to, we just have to get Ryan away.
Can I make a comment? Okay, I hear what he said about copper. And I hear what he said about steel. But the question is, does it have to be copper? Does it have to be steel? Can they be composites? Can they be plastic? Why is it copper and steel?
It's the majority of our equipment. So like with us, I don't have much option with steel joist, steel deck, steel columns. But then George, rooftop units.
Yeah, I know you were mentioning pipe, but we also have, wiring, copper. Even the PVC costs have gone up. So even if we looked at that using.
Yeah, the price of PVC as compared to copper, it's still gonna be a magnitude difference in cost increase.
It's not as much as you think, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, then it's gonna be different.
PVC is actually going up faster than the copper has.
Yeah, but the price may have went up with regard to, it used to be $1 a foot and now it's $4 a foot. And that's 25%, or that's a 44 times cost increase. But compare that to a copper, and how much is it? It's still cheaper than copper.
But Jim, I think we're saving pennies. When we start looking at it, if we look at that, one of the big ones always comes up with the
Now we've got
electrical
thousands of feet of it.
is go into aluminum for electrical, which we don't like to do.
Oh, you don't want to do aluminum anyway. doesn't it?
No, but it's
Problem.
an option. That's what I look at it as. Is we do have options, but like rooftops, you don't. There's no other option for that. The steel, we could go to masonry bearing walls, but we're gonna have the same problem with delivery, concrete prices are
That's
going up,
And that's a rebid, Jim, right? That's a
Yeah.
rebid.
no matter what.
All specifications, we're at different specs.
The price of aluminum is rising faster than the price of steel right now. I can build a steel mold cheaper than I can aluminum mold right now.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous what's going on out there right now. It really is.
The really main reason steel is going up, you can't get anything imported. We work with, we can't even get nothing, no steel's coming in this country. Until steel starts shipping in from Italy, Japan, Korea, American getting steel prices. That's, if you work in steel, we can't even get our parts. We ordered them literally years ago, we can't get stuff, because there's no way to get here.
so what I'm hearing is option one, don't do the deducts. Show the credit on the A&E fees that we've already paid and show the contingency at the $2 million instead of the 3.825. Do that, so then but it's option one. That's what we'll present, and I'm sure Tim will happily come up with some kind of a motion, because it's all gonna be one, so it's gonna be a motion to see where everybody's at, as far as a yes or no. And then we can either award, or you have 30 more days, but it sure would be nice to get it awarded sooner for the contractors' sake. So that's what we need to do.
Hopefully you won't hit me again when I bring this up about spending money.
Watch it.
You got me good the first time. We did have one ad alternate, and it was for painting the regional skill center. It was for $30,000, which you can imagine that's a screaming deal for paint. Whether Ryan can get the paint right now or not, I'm not sure, because we're missing pigments now. We can't do yellow paint right now, yellow parking lot lines, you can't get pigment. But one thing I would suggest is for $30,000, if you decide to do this whole building, we probably should paint the regional skill center for $30,000, because it's gonna look like the little pig in the back if we don't, after we get this building done. So just something to think about. You know, could we add to this? Will we bring it in at the end of the project maybe? But Tim, maybe it's something we write into the contracts. We could add it back if necessary.
There's
It's peanuts again.
question I have. How long, Chris, do you estimate this project will take in its present form? Years, months,
We were thinking almost a year and a half.
year and a half? Is it possible to let the individual districts know their payment schedule that would occur? It's not, nobody's gonna owe us all at once, right? So maybe we can.
That's up to their own financing.
It's up to the districts.
It's up to the districts to negotiate whatever they can.
I know, but the payout, when it has to come here.
But Chris, what's our payment plan with how does that work when we're paying?
Well, with the contractor, with us, we paid $675,000 in, and that comes incrementally at 75% when we bid, and then we won't get the rest of our fee till the end. But with the contractors, it's gonna start off low, that you're gonna have like minimal fees to start off, and then where it's gonna ramp up is right about in the middle of the project. So once we get 4 or 5 months in the project, that's when all the big bills start to come in and start to pay for the new construction. So the first one's gonna be minimal, because it's mobilization, things like that. The second one, they're gonna start getting some new utility materials. By the time we get to that 3rd or 4th month, that's when it's really gonna start.
Paul, can you work with Chris and come up with a kind of a payment plan based on percentages for everybody, so that everybody would have a good idea?
Budget.
Right.
That's really good.
So
Did we ever, or have we looked at, what does absolutely positively have to be done this year?
What absolutely positively needs to be done is the new construction first. What we don't want to do is disrupt the students that are here. And that was the beauty of this plan, was to start with the new construction. So that's what we have to start with.
So what is the problem with doing that only? And then look at next year or even the following year, when the rate should be going down again, as everybody keeps saying. And we might be money ahead again.
It's still a rebid though, because you're taking.
Yeah, I know it is.
Right.
I know it is, but
I'm
still
still
about the
reading.
money 2 years from now versus the money right now, there's a big difference on I'm hearing everybody say.
first of all, it's the rebid. That's the problem, is no matter what, if you change the scope at all, we got to rebid, number one.
No, we don't. We can cancel. We can deny all bids.
Correct. Then we can't do anything.
Then we can go ahead and bid for the one portion.
Correct. But that portion will be higher as soon as we go out to rebid, number one. Number two is the thing we keep talking about cost of supplies, and that's big. What we don't know, I don't know, and nobody else does around here. We got some ideas. I was not fully functioning in the 70s as a adult, because I was very young then, Jim. But I understood the 70s when you had inflation and all that, You're gonna,
I wasn't.
that's just,
Not that you remember.
we could be into a similar situation with a whole lot of other things going up, wages, you know, a whole bunch of, if you wait a year, you might have a savings on some copper potentially, although it hasn't gone down even pre-COVID. But you're gonna pay more in other things potentially for what it could look like on the horizon, when you're gonna have, who knows what's gonna happen in the next.
Well, these
One
are
to
all
three.
what happens if, you know, and that's what you're basing everything on. What happens if?
The only if that we don't have to do with option one is we don't have to rebid. We know what that is, even though it's higher than what we want. That's the caveat of what we do. But let me move to the second section of this.
Can I just
Yeah.
say, we need to all take this to our boards, show them the option we want, and just get this ball rolling. This project has been talked about for 10+ years. I think we could have had this project done for 26 or 27 million 10 years ago or something.
Even a year ago.
Prices are not going up. A year ago, we should have been out to bid a year ago. Nobody thought that this pandemic was gonna happen, that COVID-19 was gonna strike, but it did, and this is the predicament we're in. Take it back to your boards, get approved, and let's move on with this project. So,
From Northeast, straight from
Easier said than done.
Good. Yeah, here's the second part of this is, Rick and I met with, John and with, Aaron and Ian, superintendent business manager, to try to, again, get a, once the bids are out there, no matter if you like them or not like them, we need a yes from Mill Creek. So we talked through the project, talked through some options, which is where part of the, the idea of making sure we were all on the same page as far as some options and going from there. So this might be helpful. It might not be. I hope it is. But we had a good conversation. I thought Aaron shared, I think what he tried to do on the Zoom call in December with some of the equity issues about the feeling that Mill Creek has that maybe it's not equitable. And what I suggested to him at the time is that was kind of a non-starter with all of us. If you take all of our district, all of our properties across all 11 districts and tax them all the same, it's equitable. It's the same for everybody. They're just a lot bigger. He pushed back a little bit that, and what I thought was, at least for my simple mind, I could understand that where they're coming up with the equitable feeling here is that everybody's aid ratio is different. The funding we're getting from the state is a little different. So when he talked through that a little bit, I understood it a little bit. I'm going to try to help you guys understand it. I'm not expecting everybody to agree with it. I don't agree with it, okay, with the consensus they've come to. But it helped. I think it helped me, John, to understand at least where they were coming from. So I got a simple example, and you can see if that document will help or not. But basically, the one thing Aaron talked about is like at Northwestern, we have a higher aid ratio. We get a higher reimbursement for PESers from the state, that type of thing. So basically, if we send $100 out here to the tech school, okay, everybody sends $100. Maybe our local taxpayers came up with $25 of that Northwestern. Just throw, it's not an accurate number, but it's something like that. Where, and maybe it's the same for Iroquois. Iroquois, maybe you guys are sending about 25 of that 100. The rest of that's coming through state money into your coffers, okay? Where Mill Creek, maybe they're sending 50 of that $100 from their local tax, because they're, they have a lot more. But so in his mind, the local taxpayer in Mill Creek is already paying more than, Union City taxpayers on it. So to me, that at least helped me understand their point of view and where they were coming at. The way our article reads for funding is, it's based on the
State Tax Equalization Board as of June 30th.
Right, so that's the way the formula is in there, but to me, that at least helped. And then I had asked Rick earlier today, just budget-wise, and he pulled this document up here, which I haven't looked at yet, so.
Essentially, Sam, it just lists all the school districts within our area here and their current aid ratio for 21-22.
Okay.
And compared to last year's.
And can you tell me how that, back when Paul's our business manager at Northwestern, if we had a $20 million budget, our local taxpayers were putting about 4 or 5 million in, I'm guessing at 4 or 5, and I want to say our state funding was about, 13 or 14 million, and then there's a little bit of federal money. So that's where I came up with the 20, we're paying, local taxpayers are paying about 25% towards the budget. So I don't know how the aid ratio, I know that there's a huge formula and it's in
I'm
there.
sure everybody's business manager at one time or another has reviewed that, but essentially the higher the aid ratio, the more state aid that you would get, the lower, the less you would get. So that's pretty much the concept.
So understanding that a little bit, one of the scenarios that I threw out is, Rick's done really well working with some of your superintendents and trying to come up with, is there a way to change our funding formula? And the answer, and we shared that with Mill Creek, is they're not completely done, but there's no way it's changing. It's just to be real and honest, it's going to take all school districts to agree to change it. And right now with this project upon us, it's just not going to. Understanding that, is there a way that we can move forward and potentially look to the future? The big change here, and I don't think we'd be having this conversation, Corey, 2 years ago, if PlanCom is still around. I mean, that's been the change that's happened. Our percentage that we would have had to put in from all that school district would be minuscule compared to what we would be getting, with PlanCom. So the question is there something going forward that we could change? So here's an idea, and I want to throw it out there. I'm not asking for consensus tonight, but I'd like to maybe have a conversation with each of our boards. Is if we complete this project with the existing formula, however that, if we can get done with the option on our paper here tonight, that'd be great. In the absence of PlanCon, look to a different approach for future capital improvements. The number one, doesn't change existing formula. Number two, because of some of the delays, a lot of delays we've had, takes away a veto from any one district. And number three, allows for improvements to be made along the way instead of waiting for one big project. What's happened is Dell has been, as things have broken, we just haven't fixed pieces of that because we're waiting for that one big project. Okay, I know in our school district, and I think a lot of your districts are doing work this year without a big project because you've got some funds and you're doing what you need to do. The big remodels are probably going to be more of the thing of the past. You're going to do the roof when it needs to be done and the things that you have to do associated with that. And when it's time to do this wing of this building, you're going to do that. Okay. The way that we could do that is let's pre-fund a capital reserve fund here through our budget process. Okay. We threw out a number and we need to do some work on this, but let's say we need to set aside $500,000 a year. Okay. We've been doing that. A lot of us have done that for this project. We've been setting money aside and holding on for it. Instead of that, in the normal budgetary process, let's come up with a number that we need to do, projecting out in 15 years, how much money do we need to do? Because we're going to have all new. When are we going to have to replace that rooftop unit or that boiler or that cooler or whatever we've got to do? Let's project that out and let's start saying this year we need $500,000 just put in there. So every district, based upon your normal budget, what you're sending per student you've got, let's also include it. It's going to increase your contribution here a little bit, but you don't have that hanging over our heads that there's a big project coming that we've got to sock money aside for this other building that we own called the tech school. So it's a little different approach. It's like having a savings account instead of going into debt. But it also will give the JOC, future JOCs, well after I'm gone, and probably some of us are gone, it's gonna be, it needs to be a capital reserve project, so it's not used for, whatever comes up that year, extra salaries or whatever, it's gotta be set aside.
Or normal maintenance.
Or normal maintenance. And we can justify, we can say, hey, here's where it gets used, here's where it doesn't. If we have some normal rooftop work that needs to be done and replaced, then that capital reserve project would do. If we need to do this wing with some new, project that would be, improvement, just like you're doing in your own school districts. You all have a capital reserve project.
Needs to be defined.
Correct. We define that and then set that aside. So that in 15 years, there'd be a nice pot of money so that, well, it's gonna be more than 15 years for it to be approved, whatever it is. You understand what I'm saying? Everything has a life. But it would be a big change. But what that does is, in order to do our budgets, which we need to agree here, the JOC, what that budget looks like every year. Superintendents need to have that discussion every year. They can help with a lot of insight in how much we need to start setting aside. We need to set that aside, have that there, and then 2/3 of all boards have to approve the budget every year. So that number has to be approved by a large majority of us. And we're not then going back, that original formula is still there. If PlanCon comes back, you go back to that, fund your projects. But right now, it doesn't look like it's on the horizon. So we need to start planning without that, and then if it does, great. We've got extra money set aside to be able to do that. So nobody's thrown anything at me so far. So any off the cuff ideas without thinking about that too much? Questions?
I think it's an excellent idea. I think, every school district does have a CapEx, but, for future. And it's a shame that we don't have that already.
We do, it's just really tiny.
Right. But I mean, I have no idea if Union City sends 100,000 a year, then maybe we should start sending 120, and the extra 20 goes into what you just said. I think it's a great idea. Because there are parts of the building that aren't getting work done, correct?
Absolutely.
So, we could be in the same boat 5 years from now.
I think we should definitely explore our options after this, major renovation, so.
Yeah, there's no way to hurry up and do that right now.
No.
But I think
Just
that
money
money,
in waters right now.
we did throw that out into Mill Creek, and I think it was.
Well, we haven't brought it before the board.
Right.
We're just feeling our way through here. But I think it is an option. But again, it would replace that formula.
The formula would still be there. We just wouldn't use the formula unless PlanCon, but I don't think we don't want to muddy the water by getting rid of that formula, because that doesn't, if we had an emergency and all 11 school districts may have to agree to something, but it would take all 11 school districts to agree to do anything with that.
Well, that might be.
You would still, the formula would still be there. We would prepare another way to move forward in the future and not use that formula. Unless PlanCon came back or, something like that. Right, Tim?
I think that if you wanted to move forward and try to resolve all issues, then maybe that could be part of the package in regard to the recommendation. That the recommendation would be, project
move to
we
that.
discussed about. The capital formula will not change, but that there will be something added to the budget with a cap and use the anticipated level as opposed to anything else, and see if that floats by all districts. All you can do is ask. If that would resolve, it's an option to resolve the formula issue, it's an option to take care of.
It doesn't solve the formula issue.
I guess
Why don't we have
devil's-
extra money for this deliberately at a rate that we could use in the future for capital projects? I think it's a good one. I think that's a great idea.
And in essence, operating under the rules that the state has right now, it would make the formula obsolete.
Right.
However, I would hate to do away with that in case something like PlanCon came back. It may be to our advantage to leave that there.
Why do you say that?
If the state came in and wanted to fund the majority of it.
Yeah.
With funds, if there was something tied to the capital reserve project, that you had so much money in there that the state wouldn't fund something, that might be to our detriment with that.
Not always the case.
I don't know, I wasn't around much during PlanCon, it's been gone for a while.
Right. It's an idea.
Any other thoughts? Any more questions for Chris?
Chris, with your knowledge of PlanCon, how do you think that would work?
Honestly, John, I don't think PlanCon's ever coming back. Wanna know why?
No.
Because we're paying for it. The state hasn't paid for a school in how long? And they don't have to. Why would they? I mean, I just found out that the architect that was there, that retired about 2 years ago, came back, just retired again. They don't have an architect leading the Department of Education for PlanCon right now. There's nobody. So that tells me they're not planning on bringing it back because we're all paying for it. We're all figuring out a way to do it. So
They have
why
no
would they?
intentions, no intention of bringing it back.
I don't think so. I mean, I would love, you should see, has anybody seen what the wonderful PlanCon plan is? They're gonna pay for everything. They're gonna pay for your little projects, they're gonna pay for your big projects, whenever you want. I mean, it's an absolutely dynamite PlanCon, but I think it's just a teaser. I don't see it coming back. I really don't, not at this point. And
Like
because
you
my
said,
big
the
question is,
individualistic are figuring a way how to take care of it.
so let them
without-
do it. Why bother?
We don't need it, yeah,
Right. I mean,
that's what they think, you know.
that's what I'm thinking.
Or not?
It's really a shame. But I don't see it coming back, unfortunately, at this point.
Okay, we're done with this, then we'll add a motion somehow from the JLC to send to all of our boards. I think we need to do that. The first step here, we do that today to try to, if we can get an answer this month, that would be the most superb way. There may be some room to, for some changes going forward to help, but. Okay.
When do we plan on having those? Can you get those to us as soon as possible?
We'll get you those bid numbers tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay, because I have a meeting on Thursday. I'd like to take it as soon
I
as
don't know
possible.
if that George could work, but we'll try to have everything to everybody by Thursday, the latest.
Okay.
Can we have that payout scheduled too?
Yeah, Paul's gonna work, Paul's gonna
Yeah.
work.
That would be important.
If we can gather all that together and then we can send it out, probably through Cat, make sure everybody gets it, all those pieces in one email, so we're not having to fish for 3 different parts. And Tim will probably, are you gonna work on a motion for all of our districts to pass them?
I have one already drafted.
Okay, all right. Dan is doing something.
Wow.
You're doing good. All right, so thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. And we're gonna go into executive session for personnel now. Open the boardroom, and then we'll come back and start our voting meeting, which frankly should be fairly short. All right?
You're saying,
We're gonna go to the boardroom. Jim, you have a motion. under operations for us.
Right, that's under A.
Sure. Way back. All right, all this meeting in order, please join me for a moment of reflection. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Here.
Here.
Mr. Bucksky,
Here.
Mr. Olson,
Here.
Frank. Mr. Rickroll,
Here.
Mr. Bascom,
Here.
Mr. Boyd,
Here.
Mr. Ring,
Here.
Mr. Gilmore,
Here.
Ms. Lee. Here.
Thank you for all of you being here for this special meeting. I will announce that we had prior to our meeting here in executive session for personnel matters and reasons. So, are there any guest or public comments? By raising a hand there. So last meeting from now on, right, we're going to still broadcast, but anybody wants to participate is be here. That's right. End of the month, that's the plan for it. All righty, so we've got operations, new business. You want to read us a potential motion?
Sure. Resolved by the Joint Operating Committee that they recommend to the participating school districts to award the Erie County Technical School renovations and additions project based on the apparent low bidder as identified in option 1 with building costs of $29,599,000. Architectural and engineering fees at a cost of $1,775,940, showing also a credit of $675,000. With F&E at $1,675,000 and contingency at $2 million.
Second. Rick got the second. Any discussion?
Wait, is this motion to approve it
Motion to recommend to the participating school districts
or to recommend?
So now,
Yeah.
all we're doing is send it back to all the
Yeah.
districts now with.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Updated number.
Yeah.
Set it back. And if possible, if we get that all done this month, then we could award bids. If we get 11 yeses, then we can award bids at our regular August meeting.
And what I'll do is I'll actually draft that and have an approval resolution for each school board as I did in the past. And I'll support that to the superintendent. And that way they'll have it again. Probably before your meeting. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we got somebody at the Thursday meeting.
We have a Thursday.
Two
I'll do
Thursday.
it tomorrow.
Just a quick question, and maybe Rick would answer it. Does he have the pulse of the rest of the superintendents on the total cost of this project?
I don't, Steve. I don't. I know that number has bounced around, started at 32.5, went down to 27.5 or 29 and 27, now back up to 36. So I really can't speak for everybody else.
Did they know of the 36 number though?
They were sent the construction bids.
So this
were
won't
sent.
be a shock to them.
I don't think it'll be a shock. And again, like you said, it's pretty simple calculation. You go back, like I went back and checked what our contribution would have been on 32.5 million, and it's a 15% increase on that. So you know, I can't tell you. I know that everybody that I talk to, including Mill Creek Township School District, is committed to getting this project done, and they know what's best for the best interest of the kids. So that I can't say.
Okay.
Steve, everybody knows the project cost, because I did share that.
I
Not
thought you-
just not the bid. I thought it was more important to share the project cost. So I just did a quick calculation. Mine was a little higher than what Chris has here, but I did project it with the percentages that would have been.
And now it's gonna be lower because we
You're right, absolutely, but again, that's, yeah, so Del and I talked about it the next day, and we thought, instead of letting everybody think it's 29 million, we better let them know it's probably close to 30, 738.
Right.
And Steve, you said your meeting is Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Paul's gonna work on the payment schedule calculation, but in that same time, Brad, we can put in hard with those numbers. Also put in what everybody's contribution would be. I think that's easily done. We've already done that with the regular.
We've done it actually 32 million.
Right.
Your voice is Monday. Tell me exactly what your
Just trying to.
what is your motion going to do?
Try to get it before.
My motion is for this board to recommend to your participating school boards that they approve option 1, as I listed it there, which, as I do the calculation, results in a total project cost of $34,149,940.
And you need a 100% agreement on that.
That's correct.
Yes. Before we then would award the bids, it comes back to
Yes.
us to award the bids.
Well, we can't work bid until we have all 11 districts saying yes.
Correct.
So the resolution will go to each district for their approval based on your recommendation
And how does it get to the districts? Through us or through?
through the superintendent.
Superintendent.
And that'll be Friday.
Well, it'll be tomorrow.
Well, I'm gonna try, I think I'm gonna try to reach out to everybody ahead of time because Steve's meeting is on Thursday and we don't meet together collectively until Friday. So, but at least get that information out there.
Tim, just for myself, when you say option 1 in your motion, there really should just say,
This is the price.
Well, I was using option 1.
yeah, but I'm just saying, you wouldn't use the word option
I
1
wouldn't
there.
use option.
Okay, I just want, I don't need to muddy the water for it.
This is the option.
This is the cost.
You're right, this is the cost, right?
I was just referring to the
I
option
sure
1 for
understand.
this group,
Yeah, okay.
because that's what you have in front.
The option 1 was for our benefit to bring multiple options.
Right.
And this is the option that the JOC has chosen to go back to each of the districts and ask for approval.
Those are the numbers I used.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Yes. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, Sam and Rick, when is the other discussion that we have regarding future contributions into the operating budget come into play?
That will be Friday.
With the superintendents, they'll start that. We started that conversation here. What I would suggest is let's take that back. At the same time, we're talking about this, and let's.
Well, that's what I'm thinking timing here. I mean, you're meeting on Friday, you're meeting on Thursday.
That's gonna be depending on how we end up doing it.
Okay.
It's gonna be a discussion on amounts and all that that'll be a working document here until we start our budgeting process for 20. Where are we at? This is 21, 22, so 22, 23 would be the first year that would be.
And John, I can call Matt, although I don't like him, I'll call him.
Who's that?
Matt Bennett, say, I'll call him ahead of time. Have a discussion.
All right.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Did I hear anything on Zoom there, Andy?
That was an aye.
Oh, wonderful. We'll let your superintendent know. Thanks. All righty, then, that takes care of operations. We have, a motion for administrative staff. Can we take this as one motion for both, or do we need individual ones?
Individual.
Into your option. All right. I don't have my paper. Can you just tell me the name for the business manager first? First, a motion to approve the presented business manager, and her name is?
Yeah.
Second. So John made that motion, and David seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good, carries again 10-0. And if someone would like to make the motion on principal, I will. Who's second? Second, Corey, and the principal.
Julie Aiken. AIKEN.
Any discussion? Aiken for principal position? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries 10-0. Shoot, that's all my.
Motion to
Here,
adjourn.
there we go. We got a motion adjourned. Somebody want to start? All right. Corey? You got, what's that?
Next meeting, what's the date?
It's Thursday, the fourth Thursday, which is
August 26th.
26th.
August 26th.
August 26th.
We will have dinner for you again. And thank you to Sam this evening for supplying dinner for this special meeting.
Well, thank you. I know who did need.
I'm sure she double was, right?
Yes, it was my wife.